Transparency is the foundation of accountability. In this segment, you will see unfiltered and unedited reality. We are presenting raw, primary footage directly from the front lines of justice, offering you an objective window into the complexities of the law.
Sir, stand-up management wants you out, now.
I'm at dinner, paid and calm. What law did I break?
If you don't fit the establishment, move or you'll be detained.
So this is about how I look, not my behavior. State your legal basis.
Turn around, hands behind your back.
You cuffed me on camera for bias. This becomes a lawsuit tonight.
Easy, gentlemen.
The waiter froze mid-step, a tray of plates trembling slightly in his hands. "Sir, you need to leave right now." The officer said, his voice low but firm. The man at the table looked up slowly, napkins still resting on his lap, a half-cut steak cooling on the porcelain plate in front of him. "I am in the middle of dinner," he replied calmly. "Why exactly am I being asked to leave?" The dining room of the upscale steakhouse was full that night. It was 8:42 p.m. on a Friday peak hours. Soft jazz hummed through hidden speakers. The smell of seared ribeye and buttered asparagus hung thick in the air. Crystal glasses caught the warm amber light reflecting it across white tablecloths and polished wood floors. Conversations buzzed, then faltered one by one as heads turned toward the corner table. The officer shifted his weight, one hand resting near his duty belt. "We received a complaint," he said. "You do not fit the establishment." A pause followed. The words landed heavier than the silverware now resting untouched on nearby plates. A woman at the bar stopped mid-sip. A couple near the window exchanged glances. Someone quietly reached for their phone. The man straightened his back in his chair. He wore a tailored navy blazer, no tie, a steel watch visible beneath his cuff. His voice remained steady. "I have a reservation. I have paid. I am not causing any disturbance." The officer leaned closer, lowering his voice but sharpening its edge. "Sir, I am ordering you to stand up and leave the premises immediately." For a brief moment, the only sound was the sizzle from the open kitchen. The man exhaled slowly, placing his fork and knife parallel on the plate. He scanned the room, not in fear, but in quiet calculation. "Do you understand what you are doing right now?" he asked. The officer did not answer. He repeated the command louder this time, drawing the full attention of the room. Chairs scraped softly as a few diners stood pretending to head to the restroom while angling their phones just enough to record. A server whispered to a manager near the host stand. The atmosphere shifted, luxury replaced by unease. What had begun as an ordinary dinner had turned into a public confrontation. The man rose slowly, every movement deliberate. As he stood, his eyes met the officer's, calm but unflinching. "This is a mistake," he said quietly. "Not just for me." The officer gestured toward the door. "Let's go." No one yet knew that the man being escorted past linen-covered tables was not just a customer. No one yet understood that the order to leave a steakhouse would soon unravel. Reputations expose bias and ignite a lawsuit worth millions. The story pauses and rewinds, pulling away from the tension in the dining room and traveling backward through years of quiet struggle and calculated ambition. The man at the table was named Marcus Reed. He was 47 years old. Long before tailored blazers and reservation lists, Marcus learned the restaurant business from the floor up. At 16, he washed dishes in a roadside diner in Baton Rouge, hands cracked from industrial soap, the smell of grease clinging to his clothes long after his shifts ended. He worked doubles after school, then full-time after his mother fell ill, learning quickly that effort did not always equal respect. By his early 20s, Marcus had moved through kitchens across Louisiana and Texas. Line cook, prep cook, assistant manager. Each promotion came with longer hours and quieter resistance. He watched white colleagues with less experience move ahead faster, given trust he had to earn repeatedly. He stayed anyway. He studied profit margins at night, memorized vendor contracts, learned what made restaurants fail and what kept them alive. At 31, he took his first real risk. He emptied his savings and borrowed against his car to buy a struggling steakhouse on the outskirts of Houston. Banks had rejected him twice. One loan officer suggested he find a partner who looked more established. Marcus signed the papers alone. The first year nearly broke him. He slept in the office twice a week. He delayed his own paychecks to make payroll. He greeted customers by name and cleared tables when servers quit mid-shift. The gamble paid off slowly, then unmistakably. The restaurant became profitable, then popular, then known. 5 years later, Marcus owned 4 locations. By 45, he owned 12 spread across 3 states. He employed over 600 people. Many of them came from backgrounds like his. He paid above industry average. He promoted from within. He kept his name off the walls, letting the food and the staff speak for him. That night at the steakhouse, Marcus was not there to celebrate himself. He was meeting a regional supplier to discuss expanding into the Midwest. He had chosen the restaurant deliberately. It was a competitor. He wanted to observe service-pacing menu execution. This was business disguised as dinner. The officer confronting him came from a very different path. Officer Daniel Hargrove had been with the department for 11 years. He was known as proactive, decisive, confident. His file showed steady performance reviews, but buried beneath routine commendations were quieter notes. 3 citizen complaints over 6 years. All involved allegations of racial bias in upscale commercial areas. None were sustained. Witnesses were inconsistent. Body camera footage inconclusive. Each case closed without discipline. Hargrove believed deeply in order. In his mind, certain spaces had an expected look, an expected presence. Deviations triggered suspicion. Steakhouse managers trusted him. Security called him by name. He took pride in being someone businesses relied on to keep things controlled. When the call came in that evening, it was brief. Manager requests assistance. Customer making staff uncomfortable. No crime reported. Hargrove had already decided what the situation was before he entered the dining room. 2 histories moving on parallel tracks collided over a linen tablecloth and a cooling plate of steak. The confrontation in the restaurant was not random. It was the inevitable meeting point of ambition earned and authority assumed. The room did not settle after Marcus stood. It shifted. What had been a quiet, expensive dining experience became something watchful and uneasy. Marcus remained near his chair, not moving toward the door yet. He reached calmly into the inside pocket of his blazer and removed his phone, placing it face up on the table screen lit. "I would like to understand what is happening before I leave," he said. "May I speak to the manager who made the complaint?" Officer Hargrove shook his head slightly. "You have been asked to leave," he said. "That is all the explanation you need." Marcus nodded once, absorbing the words. He slid his credit card receipt toward the edge of the table. "My check is paid. I have not raised my voice. I have not violated any policy posted at your entrance. I am asking for a reason. That is a reasonable request." A server lingered a few steps away, hands clasped tightly at her waist. Her eyes moved between the officer and Marcus, then toward the bar where the manager had retreated behind the host stand. 2 diners at a nearby table leaned closer together, whispering. A man near the window angled his phone upward, pretending to check messages while recording. Hargrove's jaw tightened. He took a half step closer. "Sir, you are refusing a lawful order." Marcus looked directly at him. "I am not refusing. I am asking for clarification. There is a difference." The words were measured, not confrontational, but they landed poorly. The officer's shoulders squared. His voice dropped. "You are escalating this situation." The crowd felt it. Chairs scraped softly as people adjusted their seats. A woman at the bar muttered, "This is ridiculous," under her breath. Another diner quietly said, "He did nothing." The manager finally emerged, face-pale, hands raised in a placating gesture. "Officer, maybe we can talk privately," he said. Hargrove did not look at him. Marcus turned slightly, addressing the room as much as the officer. "If there is a policy I have violated, I would like it stated. If there is a concern about my behavior, I would like it specified." Silence followed. The manager looked down. No one answered. Hargrove felt eyes on him now. Phones were clearly out. He could feel control slipping, and control mattered. He gestured again toward the exit, sharper this time. "Sir, stand up fully and walk out now, or I will escort you." Marcus nodded once more. He rose, completely smoothing his jacket. He did not argue. But as he stepped away from the table, he said quietly, "This is not about behavior, and you know it." The officer's face flushed. He placed a guiding hand near Marcus's elbow, not touching, but close enough to signal authority. As they moved through the dining room, whispers followed. Someone said, "That man looks like he belongs here more than anyone." Another voice answered, "That does not seem to matter tonight." The cameras kept rolling. The exit doors came into view. Outside, under the restaurant's soft exterior lighting, the air felt heavier. Marcus stopped just beyond the threshold. He turned slightly toward the officer. "Before this goes any further," he said, "I want it noted that I am being removed without cause." Hargrove did not respond. But for the first time since arriving, doubt flickered across his face. The situation had escalated beyond a misunderstanding. It had become a public test of power, and too many people were watching. The moment Marcus crossed the threshold, the night seemed to slow down. The glass doors closed behind him with a muted thud, sealing off the murmurs of the dining room. Outside, the city lights reflected off parked cars and polished windows. A valet paused, mid-step keys dangling from his fingers. Two guests who had stepped out to smoke stopped talking altogether. Everything was suddenly focused on the man standing under the soft glow of the restaurant's awning. Officer Hargrove moved first. "Sir, you need to keep walking," he said. His hand hovered closer now, no longer symbolic, ready. Marcus did not raise his voice. He did not resist. He simply stood still for half a second longer than expected, long enough for the cameras behind the glass to keep recording. "I am being removed from a public business where I have broken no rule," Marcus said. His words were slow, deliberate. "Please state the legal basis for this action." The officer's eyes flicked toward the window, toward the silhouettes of phones held chest high. His jaw clenched. "Sir!" "Turn around," Hargrove said. The command was flat rehearsed. Marcus felt the shift immediately. The air changed. The valet looked away. One of the diners whispered, "Oh, no." Marcus exhaled, then complied, turning slowly. He placed his hands behind his back, not touching, waiting. The officer stepped in close. The sound of metal echoed sharply as the cuffs came out. Click. The first cuff closed around Marcus's wrist, tighter than necessary. His fingers flexed once, then stilled. Click. The second cuff locked in place. The cold steel pressed against his skin, an unfamiliar weight for a man used to signing contracts and shaking hands. For a brief second, no one spoke. Traffic moved in the distance. A car horn sounded down the block. Marcus stared straight ahead, his reflection faintly visible in the restaurant window. Inside, diners watched through the glass forks, suspended mouths slightly open. This was no longer a removal. This was a spectacle. Hargrove guided Marcus toward the curb. His hand rested firmly on Marcus's upper arm, now unmistakable. Cameras were no longer subtle. Phones were raised openly. Someone said, "This is insane." Another voice answered, "He was just eating dinner." Marcus felt the weight of humiliation settle in. Not explosive, but heavy and controlled. He did not bow his head. His mind moved elsewhere, already cataloging details. Time, location, witnesses, the angle of the cameras, the words spoken, the absence of cause. He knew exactly what this moment meant. As they reached the patrol car, Hargrove hesitated. Just a fraction of a second. Enough to betray uncertainty. He opened the back door anyway. "Sit down," he said. Marcus complied, lowering himself onto the hard plastic seat. The door closed with a hollow sound that carried farther than it should have. Inside the car, the world narrowed. The smell of disinfectant and old coffee filled the space. Marcus stared at the metal grate separating him from the front seat. This was the point of no return. Outside, he could still see people standing on the sidewalk, phones raised, recording every second. Hargrove stood by the door longer than necessary before walking around to the driver's side. As he opened his door, a thought crept in, uninvited. This man did not look lost. He did not look afraid. He looked like someone who understood systems. The engine started. The car pulled away from the curb. Behind them, the steakhouse resumed its glow, but nothing inside would taste the same that night. The patrol car rolled into the station lot at 9:11 p.m. The overhead lights washed everything in pale white flattening shadows and stripping warmth from the night. Marcus stepped out slowly when the door opened, the cuffs still tight around his wrists. Inside the building, the hum of fluorescent lights replaced the city noise. A desk officer looked up, then paused, eyes lingering longer than usual. "What is this one for?" she asked. "Disorderly removal," Hargrove said. Trespass. Marcus said nothing. He was led past a row of plastic chairs and into a small processing room that smelled faintly of toner and old paper. A camera mounted in the corner blinked red. Another officer entered, older, slower, with sergeant stripes on his sleeve. He glanced at Marcus, then at Hargrove. What happened? Hargrove repeated the summary, clipped and confident. The sergeant listened without interrupting, then turned to Marcus. Sir, do you have identification? Marcus nodded. It is in my jacket pocket. Front left. The cuffs were loosened just enough for him to retrieve his wallet. The sergeant flipped open the wallet, then stopped. He looked again. He pulled out a black card, then another. Corporate identification. Business licenses. A metal card engraved with a company name and 12 locations listed beneath it. His expression shifted, not dramatic but unmistakable. Hold on, he said quietly. He stepped out of the room. Minutes passed. The air felt heavier with each one. Marcus stared at the wall, listening to muffled voices beyond the door. One voice rose slightly. Another cut it off. Footsteps returned faster this time. The door opened again. This time a lieutenant entered. Her posture was rigid, controlled. She looked at Marcus, then at the cuffs. Those come off now, she said. The metal clicked open. Blood rushed back into Marcus's wrists, sharp and tingling. Sir, she said, choosing her words carefully. Are you Marcus Reed, owner of the Prime Cut Steakhouse Group? Marcus nodded. I am. The room went still. The lieutenant closed her eyes briefly, then opened them. The restaurant you were removed from tonight operates under a licensing agreement with your company. Hargrove's face drained of color. He opened his mouth, then stopped. The lieutenant continued. Corporate records confirm it. 12 locations, 3 states, you are the majority owner. The realization settled slowly, brutally. The man ordered out of a steakhouse was not an intruder. He was not out of place. He was the place. Every assumption that had fueled the night collapsed inward. Marcus stood, rubbing his wrists. He met Hargrove's eyes for the first time since the arrest. This is what happens when decisions are made without facts, he said quietly. The lieutenant swallowed. Sir, you are free to go. We will be documenting everything. Marcus nodded once. He already knew that documentation would not be enough. Outside, his phone vibrated non-stop. Missed calls. Messages. Videos already circulating. The truth had surfaced, and it was moving faster than anyone in that room could stop. By morning, the story had escaped the walls of the precinct. The first video appeared online at 6:18 a.m. A 30-second clip filmed from inside the dining room, Marcus standing calmly while an officer gestured toward the door. By 7 a.m., a second angle surfaced from the sidewalk, capturing the handcuffs. The pause, the silence before the patrol car door closed. By noon, the footage was everywhere. Millions of views, tens of thousands of comments. The narrative was no longer controlled by reports or summaries. It was visible frame by frame. Marcus did not give interviews that day. He met with counsel instead. Civil rights attorneys, corporate attorneys, employment attorneys. They watched the videos without speaking, stopping only to note timestamps and statements. The complaint took shape quickly. Unlawful detention, false arrest, racial discrimination, violation of equal protection, reputational harm, emotional distress, interference with business relationships. The lawsuit was filed 3 days later. $6.4 million. The amount was not symbolic. It was calculated. Lost contracts, brand damage, expansion delays, employee anxiety, security costs. The filing named the officer individually and the city as a defendant. It cited prior complaints against Hargrove patterns dismissed as isolated incidents now placed side by side. Public reaction intensified. Industry leaders spoke out. Restaurant owners shared similar stories. Civil rights groups demanded accountability. The city issued a statement calling the incident unfortunate while declining further comment. That restraint did not last. Internal Affairs opened an investigation within 48 hours. Body camera footage was reviewed, dispatch logs examined, manager statements compared against video. The complaint that initiated the call was vague, subjective, unsupported. No policy violation, no disruptive behavior, no legal basis for removal. Officer Hargrove was placed on administrative leave, his badge and weapon surrendered. His prior complaints were reopened, this time not in isolation. Patterns emerged clearly when viewed together. Stops in upscale areas, removals without cause, escalations triggered by questioning authority. Marcus watched none of it unfold directly. He focused on his employees. He visited locations, quietly reassured managers, addressed concerns. "This is bigger than me," he told them. "This is about dignity." The message resonated. As pressure mounted, settlement talks began. Quietly at first, then urgently. The city understood what the footage showed. So did the public. This was not a misunderstanding. It was a demonstration of bias with consequences. For Officer Hargrove, the consequences were no longer theoretical. His career hung in suspension. For the city, the cost was no longer just financial, it was credibility. And for Marcus, the dinner he never finished had become the opening chapter of a legal battle that would force a reckoning far beyond one steakhouse. What happened to Marcus Reed did not exist in a gray area of the law. It was clear, documented, and familiar to civil rights attorneys who had seen the same pattern repeat for decades in different settings. A private business open to the public cannot remove a customer absent a legitimate policy violation. Law enforcement cannot enforce vague discomfort as law. The moment Officer Hargrove ordered Marcus to leave without articulable cause, the encounter crossed from service call into unlawful detention. Under established constitutional standards, a police officer must have reasonable suspicion of criminal activity to detain an individual. There was none. No allegation of theft, no disturbance, no refusal to pay. The subsequent use of handcuffs escalated the violation into false arrest. When that escalation is tied to race, supported by comparative treatment, and prior complaints, it implicates equal protection violations that cities lose in court with regularity. But the legal failure was only part of the story. The psychological mechanics were just as instructive. Bias does not always announce itself with hostility. Often it appears as certainty. The certainty that someone does not belong. The certainty that discomfort equals danger. In upscale spaces, that bias sharpens because expectations of who fits the image become rigid. When challenged, authority reacts defensively. Questions are reframed as defiance. Calm is interpreted as arrogance. Compliance becomes submission, not cooperation. Marcus did several things right, not because he was perfect, but because he was prepared. He stayed calm. He did not raise his voice. He allowed recording. He complied physically while objecting verbally. He created witnesses. He remembered details. These actions preserved evidence and protected his safety. For viewers, the lesson is practical. If confronted by law enforcement without cause, remain still. Speak clearly. Ask for the reason. Do not argue the law on the sidewalk. Let cameras run. If removed or detained, say you do not consent but will comply. Request names and badge numbers when safe. Contact legal counsel immediately afterward. Documentation matters more than winning the moment. For businesses, the lesson is equally clear. Calling police to resolve discomfort rather than conduct creates liability. Delegating discrimination to law enforcement does not absolve responsibility. It multiplies it. The final question is not whether Marcus Reed will prevail in court. The footage suggests that outcome is likely. The question is how many similar dinners ended quietly, without cameras, without resources, without a lawsuit to force accountability. Because the problem was never about stake. It was about who is presumed to belong and who must prove they do.
Uncovering the truth is more important now than ever. Our goal is to hold power to account by letting the evidence speak for itself. The records don't lie. Thanks for watching and being part of this journey.